Hey guys, welcome to the third video in the Excel beginner tutorial series, and in this one we're focusing on graphs. So graphs are a really important part of Excel. It's really how you communicate your results, your findings, or the data that you have to other people. So making good charts is really important. And in this lesson, we're going to focus on kind of the basics of charts, how to format them, how to make them look better, and then we're going to go over 3 real-world examples of the kind of charts that you might be expected to make in the workplace. As like the other videos, I'm going to have the file that I'm using in the description as a practice file for download. I'd really recommend getting it and following along, but even if you don't, you'll be able to see everything I'm doing on screen, so let's get right to it. So when you make a chart, all you're doing, and just always remember this, is you're just taking some kind of data and you're showing it to other people. And the thing you always have to ask yourself is, what's the best way to do that? Now, the first step to making any chart is in Excel. As you can see on the workbook here, you've got to have the information laid out in a very clear and easy to understand way, because you need to have Excel be able to understand how to make it. So here you can see we have people's friends, or we have a list of my friends, and then how many cats, dogs, and rabbits they own. Now just to make it a little simpler, I'm going to add another column here, and I'm going to type in total pets, and then I'm going to go equals and do sum tab and then select this range. My computer's been acting a little weird today, so sorry if anything happens. And then we'll go Control C, and we're gonna shift down arrow key and then hit enter to copy and paste the total number of pets. So now that we have this all set up, the first step, the next step, whenever you have your data ready, is to go ahead and select the data that you want to use to make a chart with. So we're going to keep it really simple, and for now we're just going to take a look at how many cats each of my friends have, so just the first part. And the way you do that is you just select the entire area with your by left clicking and holding down. Now we're going to go up to the insert ribbon key, and we haven't really talked about that, and then click it to get to the insert tab, and you're going to see that charts is where we're headed. Now there's a lot to do in this, and I really encourage you to take a look at the other kinds of charts in your own free time, but this is where everything that we're going to be talking about in this video is. So one great tip that I can give is whenever you have data and you want to make a chart, go to the recommended charts, because what it'll do is it'll let you kind of preview some different types of charts and see, what some options are and how your data is going to look in a bunch of different formats. And it gives you these recommended ones, and then you can click over here to see all the different kinds of charts, and you can keep previewing it. Now, personally, I think it's really good for this data set because it's so small to just go ahead and do a standard bar chart, so we're going to click that. And by the way, these all have different names. The charts change the names of the charts change from time to time, so I'm going to do my best to call them what they are, but keep in mind I might call them something slightly different than what's in your version of Excel. So with that out of the way, now we have our basic chart. It shows the number of cats that each of our friends owns, and as you can see, Jeff has 1, John has 1, Jenny has 2, and Jake has 0, and that's right. So you'll notice that when you have the chart selected, the special kind of ribbon key thing comes up here called Chart Tools, and what Chart Tools gives you is designing and formatting for that chart, and this is something that only comes up when you have a chart open. And in here, you can see that it gives you some shortcuts where if you press them more, you can see and cycle through some other formatting options, so you can change how the chart looks really, really easily. And that's really big because, honestly, doing charts is very slow in Excel, and I'm going to try to show you some ways to make it faster, but this is a really good tip to do that. So we'll just change it up a little bit just to make it look a little different, but you'll see that you also have up here the Add Chart Element menu, which is also right here, this little green plus button. And this is how you add stuff to the chart. So you'll see right now, like, I don't have the axes labeled, right? So if I wanted to go in and add, axes titles, I could hit that, and then it gives these blank titles, and I can type in here, like, cats, and then I can type in here, like, trend, or something like that. Now, obviously, this is a really simple example, so it doesn't make a lot of sense why you would want to change it, but that's still something you can do. Now, if you go back, and we'll look at some more chart elements, there's data labels, and what this does is it tells you exactly how many, like what the value is of the data series. This isn't super useful in this example, but when you get to bigger sets that might be a little less clear exactly what something is, this can be really helpful. Data tables, same kind of thing, where it provides a table below and it gives you the exact values for everything. Once again, this might be more useful in other instances. And then error bars, this is a more advanced thing that I don't think is really worth covering. A legend is just a key to what everything is, so this will be useful in a second. And then a trend line is where the computer just comes up with a line of best fit for your data series. And this isn't super useful now, but we'll take a look at it more later. So I'd really encourage going and messing around with this stuff a little bit just to get more familiar with the charting features that Excel comes with. But the next kind of little box down here is the style kind of menu. And if you click on it, you'll see basically what's up here. It's just another shortcut to see the different kind of styles that you can go with and how you can make your chart look. And you can also play with the color scheme. So Excel comes with these built-in color schemes. And a big pro tip I can give is that a lot of people make charts and they leave it in the basic one, the kind of automatic blue that comes, and it looks a lot more professional if you just switch it to a different color. Then kind of lastly in this little quick menu you have is the filters. And this is something that is not super useful now because it's a simple data set, but it's you probably in the past have said, oh, I made a chart, but I actually didn't want to put Jeff in this one. Well, a lot of people will make the mistake of going and remaking the chart completely, but instead what you want to do is you can just go into here and deselect the data you don't want. So we can go and say, okay, well, we don't want to show Jeff, so we get rid of that. We uncheck Jeff and then hit apply. Boom, now we got rid of it, but it was a lot quicker than going and remaking the whole graph, which is something that people do a lot. So we're going to reselect Jeff, hit apply, and then the last thing you can do to kind of play with these charts on a really high level, or one of the bigger kind of categories of things you can do, is if you click on the chart area and then click on something inside of it, you can go right click and go format data series, and you should get this. Yep, you get this little kind of side menu that comes out. And what it lets you do is it just lets you go through even more options on how you want to customize the chart. You can go in and select the whole chart area and then go to this paint bucket and give it a border. There's a lot you can do with Excel with the formatting of it, and that's all of this stuff is out here in the format chart area. I'm going to cover a few things about it, but like I said before, you really want to explore this because this is one of those things that makes your charts look better. It looks more professional, because I've seen even in like professional PowerPoints that were put in front of investors, people will just use like generic charts and it just doesn't look good. And it's kind of one of those ways that you can differentiate yourself. So with that kind of covered, oh, and by the way, to make this go away, you just press this little X button up here. But and then what else to cover? So you may have seen before that like a chart will be its own tab or its own kind of spreadsheet type deal in the workbook. You do that by going up to Move Chart, and it'll give you an option to either move it to a new sheet or to just make a new sheet, and we'll call this like Caps of Friends or something like that. We'll call it Caps of Friends. And when you do that, it makes it so that it's its own tab. Now, I think this is a really powerful way to use Excel, because what it lets you do is it lets you make your workbooks a lot easier to get through and understand, because you can put all the charts in their own tabs and then have the data off to the side or however you want to do it. But that's just something to keep in mind. So we're going to delete that, and then we're going to go back to the start and just review a couple more things before we get into the kind of big examples. So we just did like a really basic chart. It was friends and cats. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually select the whole data set. And we're going to go again to insert, and then we're going to go to recommended charts. And now you're going to see that there's a lot, we're going to just see a lot more of the options. So one thing I want to touch on now is what's called a combo chart. So we're going to go to just this first one. And this is actually kind of exactly what I was hoping to show you guys. And what it shows you is you have two types of charts. So you have a line chart in the background, and then you have these bar charts in the front. And what it's showing is the number of cats, dogs, rabbits, and then up top is the total number of pets. This is a really common thing you'll see, and it's just a really good you always want to ask yourself when you're making a chart, what are you trying to show people? And this is a really good chart to kind of get across the idea of, okay, this is how many pets each guy has, and this is the kind of pets they have. Now this is where it starts to get interesting, where if we want to go in and go to chart filters and get rid of, say, we don't want to show total pets, or we don't want to show rabbits, or whatever. Now it becomes a lot more powerful, because you can really pick the data that you want to show in a graph. Or we don't want to show Jeff, and we're going to go apply. And now it's, okay, well, we have a very different looking chart, but it was very fast to make this, and it wasn't that difficult for us to do. Now, with that out of the way, it's also worth noting that you can also change the chart type that you have once you already make it. One of the big things that I see a lot of people make a mistake with is they make a chart and then they delete it and make a new one just when they want to change something. And you can kind of get around that by selecting the chart and then going up here to change chart type. And when you press that, it'll let you do the same thing where you can go through and you can look at the different types of charts that you might want to use. So the one that I actually wanted to check out is called an area, and I think areas are really good because they take up a lot of space and they look really nice. We're gonna hit OK, and I'm gonna go and then change the filters. But when I'm gonna add back rabbits, get rid of total pets, and add Jeff back to it and apply. And now you can see like the number of cats, dogs, and rabbits that each person has. Now I'm going to go back and put in total pets, and this is one of those things I just want to touch on really quick. Is Excel is not super smart sometimes, and when you make charts, you want to be aware of whether or not you have total pets, or sorry, if you have a total column, and if you do have a total column, are you including it in your chart? And you can either not select it when you make the chart, which I think is not the greatest idea. I think it's a good idea to select it into the chart and then go into this kind of filters area and get rid of total pets in this case. But just always be aware of that because Excel won't tell you that that's the case. It'll just make the chart for you anyways. The last thing I'll cover here in formatting before we get on to the examples that I've included is you can go ahead and change anything in the chart exactly how you would if it was in a cell, essentially. There's a few small exceptions which I might not cover because they're pretty advanced and there's not a lot of reason to know them, to be honest, but like if this chart title, you think that this chart title doesn't look very good, you can go ahead and select the chart title, and then you go up to Home, and you can change the color of it. I think blue is always a good title to go with, and we'll go Control B, Control Bold to type to bold it, or you can press that up here, and we'll say like, you know, distribution of pets, and then we'll make that the title. And then also, like I said before, just don't be afraid to change up the color schemes in this stuff, because at the end of the day, people like to leave the defaults in, and it looks a lot more professional if you don't. And you can also pattern these. So if you go in, and we're going to select the rabbits data series, you go over here to the series options, and, or sorry, I meant to say to the fill and line, you can go ahead and change the fill, and we're going to do a pattern fill. So we'll go in and choose a pattern, and you choose the color, and then you choose the design, and you can choose foreground and background. Like I said, there's a lot of options, and I'd really recommend playing with them, but we'll go ahead and do dotted, and then, actually I don't like that, we'll do diagonal, and then we'll do dark yellow. And then you can go in and we'll choose the number of the cats, and we'll go to fill and line again, we'll go to solid fill, let's do solid fill, but we'll change it to green. And then we'll go into the dogs, and we'll select that. And we'll change the color. Let's do this time to, let's do like a baby blue type color. So you can see already that you can make the charts look really different, and it doesn't take a lot of work. The other thing is you can select the data series to edit it by either clicking on it here, or a lot of times when you get to more complex stuff, you're better off clicking in the kind of legend here. You can click the data set name there, and it will do the same thing. So if I go in here and change the color, let's go darker, it'll change it in the chart too. And that works vice versa. So you change it up here, it changes it in here too. You don't need to worry about that. So with that out of the way, we're going to go to this next worksheet called World Pop 2019. So what I got here is I got the list of the top, or the population of all the countries in the world. Now, what we're going to do with this is we're going to make a pie chart. So pie charts are really good when you want to show the distribution of how something is broken up. And with this one, what we're going to show is obviously a pie chart of the population of the world. But a tip here is that you're going to see, you know, we have every country. I'm just scrolling down here really fast. But there's 200 countries down here, and we don't want to show 200 little slices, because at the end of the day, after a certain point, it doesn't really matter. And then second off, it's going to be so small and so cluttered that it's going to make the chart really hard to look at. So one thing you always have to be willing to do is kind of clean up the data and make it look better. And the way we're going to do that in this case is after the 10th country. So actually we'll do 10. After the 10th country, we're just going to create a category called Other. So we always want to make sure that we're bringing all the data over when we're doing some kind of operation. So up here we're going to start in E2, what I call a checker column or a checker cell. So we're going to go equals, and then we're going to do sum, and then we'll tab over to select it. And here's where you want to use the keyboard shortcuts. You're going to select E4, and if this stuff doesn't make sense to you, it's actually in the first video that I cover all this stuff, and the link for that, the playlist link is going to be in the description. But you go Control-Shift down, and that's going to select all the numbers, and then do close parentheses, enter. And now we see the total population. And it makes sense, 7.7 something billion, that sounds about right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to select 1 through 11, and we're going to copy and paste this, and then paste it, copy it, and then paste it to G4. Now, I'm going to press this double arrow button in between the I and J column to bring it out a little bit, but what we'll do is instead of Japan, we're going to overwrite it and write other, and then we're going to hit tab, and then instead of this number, we're going to go equals, and then we'll do sum of, and then starting with Japan, we're going to go Control-Shift down and close parentheses to get other. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do equals, and we can title this. We'll go up here and title, and H2 we'll write check, and then tab over to I2, and we'll go equals sum, and then we'll go of these guys. So that's again the keyboard shortcut is Control-Shift down arrow key, and then we'll go end parentheses, and what we're going to do now is this number, the population in this column should be the same in column I, should be the same as the population in column E, so we're going to go minus, and then we're going to select E2, and so if it works, we should get 0. And it does work because we get 0. So the last thing we'll do is we're going to put in headers for all the data, just so it's all good to go for the chart. And we'll write rank, and then we'll tab, and then we'll write country, and then we'll write tab, and then we'll do population, tab, and then the last thing we'll do is we're going to do a percent of population. And what we'll do here is we'll go and we're going to do equals, and then the population, and then backslash divided by, and then we're going to do the total population. But because the total population is going to be the same, we want to lock the cell and press F4. So we'll hit enter, and then we're going to go Control C, and then we'll go Shift and then hold down, and then do Control V. And now we have all the populations of the countries in the world in percentage, and we're going to go up to the number part of the home tab and press percent. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that this sums up to be 100%, so we're going to go with equals, sum, tab over, and then we'll go to this range and go Control-Shift down, and parentheses. And it does add up to 100%, so we haven't lost any data, which is good. So now we'll go ahead and we're going to select country, population, and percent of population. We're going to go to Insert again, then we're going to go to Charts, and we're going to select 2D pie chart. And so now, I'm not going to go through and format this, but you can make the chart bigger by going down to the little circle in the corner and pressing this the arrow to pull it out. But now you can see we have a pretty good looking chart. The only thing is, you can see there's a lot of stuff on this pie chart, and we want to make it really easy to see which country has which population. So one way you could do that is by going in and doing the whole like fill border, blah blah blah, change each pie slice. That could take a while. So what I'm going to do instead is go in and select the data set. So you do that by just clicking it, and I'm going to right click and go to add data labels. And then inside add data labels, I'm going to add data callouts. And now what it should do is, see, perfect, we have it. So each country, it says exactly how many people are, or what percent of the population is in it. So you'll notice it's still a little squished, and we'll help that out by getting rid of this menu, which we don't really need. So you'll go select it and then press delete. Oh, sorry. I didn't have the whole thing, just one, and press delete. So now it's looking a little better, and it would be really nice if this part wasn't at the bottom where all these countries are, and it was actually over here. So what you can do is, you can select the whole data set again, and then you go over to, it's been a long day. You go over to series options, and you go angle of first slice, and you can just offset it slightly. So we'll try offsetting it by like 90%, and that's pretty good. So now we have all these countries over here. And the next thing we'll do is so that it's a little less cluttered still, we'll select the whole data set again, we'll select the whole chart, and we'll go to pie explosion and pull it out slightly. And we don't want to make it too small, but basically it just separates the pieces of the pie a little bit so they're easier to see. And then these are just click and drag things, and what you want to do is just double click on the one you want to move, and then we'll just slide these out slightly so you can see the titles and the callouts a little better. So you see that when I click all of them, sometimes when I click it, sometimes it selects them all, and then you just click it again and pull it over. And I didn't mention this earlier, but you kind of saw that you can go ahead and select the text for any one of these boxes, and then go and use the quick menu or go up to home and change the font of this text and the bolding and underlining, all that stuff. All that functionality is brought over to this as well. So now we have a pretty good chart. You could make this look really pretty, but I think you kind of get the gist of how you want to do a basic pie chart. So now we're going to move over to Amazon stock. So this is the Amazon stock price, and what we're going to work on here is what I call it's a scatter plot, but it's for a data series. So scatter plots are really good if you want to show something over time. So you have a bunch of dates, or you have stuff in months or whatever. It's a long time series. That's what you want to use a scatter plot for. So I'm going to control up to get to the top of the data set. But what we'll do here is very similar to the first two graphs, where we want to select all the data. So we'll go Shift Control right down, select all of it. And then we're going to go to Insert tab, and under the Insert tab, we're going to go to this guy, which is Scatters. And with Scatters, there's two options essentially. There's whether or not you want to have a line, whether or not you want to have a line or dots, and then if you want the line to be smooth or not. So these are all the options you can do with that. I personally like having a scatter with straight lines, because a lot of times if you do the curved, it's deceptive and it makes it look smoother than it actually is. This is all personal preference, but that's just what I think. So now we have the chart, right? So first off, you'll notice the title doesn't quite work, so we want to say Amazon stock price. But more than that, these are not very good axes, because they don't really tell us. It's implied that this is money, but we don't want to leave anything up to debate or up to interpretation. So what you can do is to change the format of the numbers on the X or Y axis. You click on them, and then you click on the axis, and then you go over to axis options, and under number, you can go in here and change the format code. So there's a few different ways to do this. You can change the format code to change the category. So it's really easy to go in and change the category. So we can just change it to currency, but it's still looking kind of cluttered because it's showing cents. I mean, this is a big chart. You can't really see the cents. And what you can do is then go in and change the code. You can also go in and change the code directly. It's totally up to how you want to do it. But if you want to go in, and we're gonna get rid of the 2 points, the 2 cents digits, and just by hitting backspace and then hitting add, you'll see that it changes it, and now it looks a lot better. The same thing down here, where it's pretty obvious that it's 2014, 2013, and do we really need to know the day of the month? And the answer is no. What we'll do is we'll select the x-axis and then go into format code, and right now it's month/day/year. Excel is pretty smart when it comes to this stuff, so you can actually just say month/year and hit add. And now it becomes a lot simpler, where it's like, okay, now the chart is a lot easier to read, and that's pretty much it. I wanted to focus on this chart. Don't be afraid to go in and change the formatting on the numbers, because it can really take a chart from being not very easy to understand to very easy to understand. And now you can really see what's going on here. Now this is kind of a good place to talk briefly about a trend line. And so what you can do is you can add in a trend line, which we kind of talked about earlier, by selecting all this data, right-clicking, and then going to add trend line. And by default, it adds a linear trend line. This is really helpful if you're using this for maybe a science project. Now, obviously, this is the stock price, so it's not going to be super useful, but you can go over here into the side and look at trend line options and choose exponential, logarithmic, polynomial, power, a bunch of different options. And sometimes you can actually do a custom where you put in your own kind of equation. We're going to stick with automatic because that's not really necessary. But what you can do then too is you can go in and we're going to right now have moving average selected, so that doesn't give an equation. We're going to go back to linear. You can also go set intercept, which just decides whether or not the intercept is going to be 0 or not. And the thing about this is when it has a date, the 0 is the year 1900, so it's a ways back. So don't do that with the date. But you can do display equation on chart and display R squared, and this shows you what the actual equation that you're coming up with is, which is really powerful and really helpful. So with that out of the way, I'm not really going to focus on formatting this because we already covered some formatting, and I don't think it's super important to focus on that because we have bigger things to worry about in the last tab. So this last tab is corporate sales, and basically I've just come up with some sales for a hypothetical company, and it's different sales types, and what we're going to do is go through and just kind of take a look at everything and make charts, and I'm going to kind of show you some different cases when it might make more sense to use a given chart over another chart. So one thing you want to do always is you want to make sure that the data adds up and it ties out, so to speak. So we're going to go through first and sum up the sales across region, salesman, and product type to make sure they all add up to 100%. So we're going to go equals sum, and we'll go shift control down, in parentheses, boom, so 1.733 million. So we'll go over to here, and we're going to go equals sum, up, and then we'll go down and go control shift, down arrow key, close parentheses, and then we're going to go this minus C1, and if it works again, it should be 0, and it's 0, so that's good. In accounting, 0 is just showed by a dash, and if you press F2, you'll see that the equation is working. So we'll go over then to I1, and we're going to go equals sum, and then we're going to go select this cell, control shift down, and then do close parentheses, and then like we did in F1, we're going to go this minus this guy, and press enter, and it's 0 again. So that's a really good sign, it's working. Now when you have a chart that only has a few things in it, or a data set that only has a few things in it, a chart that makes a lot of sense to use is a pie chart, and that's just because pie charts are really good for like maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 data points, but once you get much bigger than that, it's really hard to see what's going on. So what we'll do is we'll go in here, we're going to select the data, and then we're going to go insert pie chart, and then we'll just do a generic pie chart. So this we'll go and title this, and we'll say, you know, sales by region. And kind of like before, it's still a little hard to see what region is what and what pie chart is which. So we're going to go in and we're going to right click and we're going to go add data labels, and then we'll go or add data labels and then just hit add data labels. And so now you can see the amount of money that each region is bringing in. So we're going to make that a little smaller and move on to the next part, which is sales by salesman or saleswoman. Now here you have a lot of different people, so it would actually be better to use a line chart. Now a line chart's a little different than a scatter plot, because a scatter plot you have an actual value for the x-axis, and a line plot you don't, you have a text value. So what we'll do is we'll go in and select all this and then go to insert, and then we'll go to line chart, and what you'll see is here when we line these up, it kind of looks like a scatter plot, but it's not quite, because these guys down here, it's a text value. And that's just one thing that's really big to keep in mind. I see a lot of people make that mistake. And it's really easy to make the mistake because they look really similar, but you just got to remember that that's the difference between a line chart and a scatter plot. Is a line chart, the bottom, the x-axis, is going to be a text value, although it could be a date if you want it to be. But in a scatter plot, that's going to be it's going to be like a numeric value. So with that out of the way, and like before, I could go in and add, you know, access titles, whatever, but I'm not going to, just to save you some time. I recommend going and playing with it a little bit on your own. So the last thing we're going to cover is over here we have the product type, and there's not a ton of different ways to do this one. It's kind of the in-betweener where it's too many values to do a pie chart, not enough for like a line. So I think it would be interesting to do like another bar chart to just kind of finish out this video with. So we're going to go through and select this entire data set. We're going to go to insert. We'll see what recommended charts has to say. And they have a column or a bar chart, which is not a bad choice. That's actually exactly what I was thinking. So maybe we'll go in here, take a look at some of the other options. Like I said, you should definitely go through and play with all these. And yeah, we'll do a bar chart. So we'll click that, and I think this is actually a pretty good choice for this level, this size of the data set, you know, around 10 entries. But as you can see, I hope you guys can see, there's a lot of different ways to do charts in Excel, and hopefully this is a good intro. There will be more videos coming out with some more intricacies and nuances to how you make charts in Excel. there's just a lot you can do. But with that being said, thanks for watching. In the description is going to be the link to the whole playlist, which I'm going to be adding videos to soon. And the next video that I will be covering is one of the most popular concepts or topics in Excel, if statements. So it's going to be a really fun video. I look forward to it. I think I have a pretty good approach to using if statements, and I think I'll make them pretty easy. But without further ado, thanks for watching, and have a great day.